We actually did get some very, very intriguing, interesting news about the Dune spin-off series, which was previously entitled Dune: The Sisterhood, but now has been renamed to Dune Prophecy. This could indicate some changes in where they want the focus to be. So Dune Sisterhood, that has been such a troubled production to begin with. From the very beginning, it was just a mess. So I had to go through just to make sure I got everything right. I have the kind of the list of Dune Sisterhood changes that have occurred behind the scenes, and it's a very long list. So it's very hard to keep up with all the behind the scenes shakeups, and pretty dramatic shakeups as well. Showrunners, directors, lead actors have all changed, switched out, and where the scope of the show was going to be, what they thought it was going to be, there was like conflicts about that behind the scenes. It's not looking good, at least from the production side of it. It kind of seems like they didn't really have like a clear vision at the time. So this was first announced. Dune: The Sisterhood was initially announced way back in June 2019. Obviously that was before Dune Part 1 had even come out yet. So at the time I thought it was kind of premature for them to be announcing a spin-off series when they hadn't proven themselves yet in regards to how they were treating Frank Herbert's world and source material. So at the time, I'm like, you're already announcing a spin-off? Like, we haven't even seen the film yet that it's based on, and your interpretation of it and your handling of it. And it looks like, yes, they did jump the gun, because pretty early on, there were shakeups. So initially, that the series would focus on the Bene Gesserit Order, that it would serve as a prequel to the Dune film, or just the Dune story. But it didn't say like when exactly it would take place. They just said it was a prequel, but it could have been, at any time. Just said focusing on the Bene Gesserit, and that is a prequel to the film. So it could have been like leading right up before to the events of the film, or the original story of Dune. So they hadn't worked that part out yet. But Denis Villeneuve was actually signed on to direct and produce the series pilot with John Spates, who has also been working as a screenplay writer for Dune Part 1 and 2. And they were both going to serve as executive producers. Villeneuve said, quote, that the Bene Gesserit have always been fascinating to me, and that focusing a series around that powerful order of women seemed not only relevant and inspiring, but a dynamic setting for the television series. That was the announcement, and this was early on too in the realm of HBO Max streaming. So it was relatively new for that. So that was one of the newest programming that they were touting out about their streaming service. Then in November of 2019, Spates had left the series, as they put it, to focus on the film sequels, to focus on the screenplay for that. Apparently, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Legendary Television was not happy with Spates' early work as showrunner and opted to remove him. And so he was removed from showrunner, but as well, he also had his own duties with film itself. So then Diane Adamou-John was hired as the new showrunner in July 2021. And then later, it came out that Villeneuve was no longer able to direct. Obviously, he had his hands full. But then Johan Renck was brought on to replace him as director. After that, then Diane Adamou-John stepped down as showrunner, but stayed on as executive producer. And then Alison Schapker was brought on as sole showrunner. So that was as far as the production staff changes. So there is a lot of changes happening. It's never good, when there's these dramatic shakeups behind the scenes. You just wonder if they even know, if they even have a solid vision of what they want to do, what story they want to tell. Because actually, when it comes to the story, they haven't really ever been clear about it. So before, they were touting it as a series based off of Frank Herbert's Dune, and that it would just focus on the Bene Gesserit, and that it would be a prequel to Dune. So it was kind of vague in regards to exactly when it would take place and what actually would that involve. Yeah, it would focus on the Bene Gesserit, but like what exactly would that entail? And would it be connected in a significant way to the story of Dune? It was very vague at first, and then it came out that it was being reported on as a adaptation of Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's Sisterhood of Dune novel. And then they did confirm that they had a more specific premise, that it was about the two Harkonnen sisters as they work to establish the sect of the Bene Gesserit and the challenges that they would have for that. So that's kind of added more detail and then did confirm, well, they're taking from Brian Herbert's expanded prequel novels for that. But as more information came out, there was quite a lot of invented characters that weren't in that novel, the Sisterhood of Dune novel. And most glaringly is the Carino royal family is not the same characters. So it's very interesting. And they didn't even address it too, that they were showcasing invented characters. That was never really something that they addressed why they were doing that. I would like to hear more from the showrunners themselves. Like, what is your direction? What is your vision for this series? What story are you wanting to tell? We haven't heard a peep. We haven't heard a thing. And it's worse than even Denis Villeneuve. It's very secretive, but at least he gives you enough to know what's going on, and you can hear his passion for the source material. So that gives you more confidence in his treatment of it. But we haven't heard really anything. We did hear initially from Johan Renck, who was very excited to be a part of the project, and then he ended up being replaced. He didn't seem very happy about that too, so it didn't seem like it was an amicable separation there, departure there. So yeah, not looking good again. So we had Emily Watson and Shirley Henderson, which were cast as the leading roles, I guess, of Tula and Valia Harkonnen. Then they went through more shakeups though too. They went on this huge hiatus, which they said was planned, but obviously it wasn't, because they had actors leave the project because they hadn't factored in such a huge hiatus, which did include some shakeups behind the scenes as far as characters and cast, crew, and they had to leave because, well, we didn't factor this into our schedules, so this just doesn't fit anymore. It's definitely been a tumultuous production, which is, putting it lightly, I know. So the series was originally scheduled to start filming November of 2020 in Budapest and in Jordan. So obviously those are locations that are already used for filming for the Dune film adaptations. So they were going to be using the same studios in Hungary and same locations, I guess, in Jordan as well. But then it ended up actually start to film in November 22nd, 2022. But then in February 2023, the production was on hiatus. Renck left the project, the director, and Henderson, a lead, I can't remember if she was Tula or Valia Harkonnen, but she was one of those Harkonnen sisters. She had to leave. And then Olivia Williams was cast to replace Henderson, and Jodie May was cast to replace Indira Varma, who also had to leave, and she was the one playing the Empress. Due to scheduling conflicts, they both had to leave. Anna Forrester is now set to direct multiple episodes of the series, including the pilot. And in July 2023, Deadline reported that production was set to resume in Budapest amidst the WGA strikes. So they were given that okay to continue filming because of the UK Union Equity Agreement. So they could do that. And that's also what allows House of the Dragon to continue filming. And they have a new composer as well. That's another thing. Composers changed. And now they have a new name. So that's it. I think I covered all the changes.